It's being called a historic proposal. The heads of Quebec's English universities, Bishops, McGill and Concordia, met with Premier François Legault earlier today about those tuition hikes for out-of-province and international students. Now, when Minister Pascale Derry first made the announcement, she'd said the money would be reinvested into the French university system. You'll recall Minister Jean-François Roberge said this is all about protecting French. What it clearly isn't about is what's best for those English universities. So how did that meeting with the Premier go? What's in this historic proposal and how was it received? We're going to find out. Graham Carr is President and Vice-Chancellor of Concordia University, and he joins us now. Thank you so much for your time today.
Good afternoon, Natasha.
So, big day, so much at stake. You had an hour to make your case. An unprecedented offer, it's being called, to help unilingual English students learn French. Tell us more. What's in this offer?
Well, I think before I get to the specifics of the offer, Natasha, the thing I want to emphasize is that I'm very glad, and I think my colleagues from Bishops and McGill are very glad that the Premier took the time to meet with us along with the Minister. We had a very open exchange over the course of an hour. The argument, the position that we've taken is that the English language universities serve all of Quebec society. We're very sensitive to the challenge that Quebec society faces in terms of protecting and promoting the French language, and we're really there in solution mode to offer what we can provide as institutions of learning to help the government, on the one hand, realize its agenda of protecting French in Quebec generally and in Montreal more specifically, but secondly, equipping students coming from elsewhere to familiarize themselves with French language and culture, to attain a level of linguistic achievement, to have work experiences with Quebec companies that will ideally encourage many of them to stay here after they graduate and contribute to the success of Quebec's economy going forward.
So already, as you point out, huge that the Premier and the Minister come to the table, that they give you an hour of your time to hear you out. Did you have the impression that they are receptive to the offer? And then, yes, please, if you could tell us a bit of what that contains. Yeah,
so I think they were in listening mode. I think an hour is a significant amount of time for a premier to devote, and it's important for us to recognize that because there are other issues that the government is dealing with inevitably. So that for me was, and for my colleagues, I think very very encouraging. The offer that we put on the table, I think is really unique, and it's a distinctive moment because the three English universities are underlining the fact that they want to be allies with Quebec in terms of recognizing the need to do as much as possible to support French in this province, and then I think Anglophone institutions have a role to play in that regard. Specifically, what we're talking about are a range of training opportunities that we would provide to non-Francophone students coming to Bishops, Concordia, and McGill, which would be calibrated to their different levels of French understanding or French knowledge before they arrive. Some students will be starting from essentially nothing. Others will have gone through immersion programs. Some will be quite well on the way to being bilingual. So part of what we want to offer is a menu or a suite of programs that responds to the different needs of our students, but at the same time is calibrated to their program expectations and calibrated to the workforce market that they're going to enter after graduation. So students who are entering into professional programs or in professional programs, how can we better prepare them for success in meeting the obligations of professional societies and des ingénieurs, etc. here in Quebec. For students in other areas, whether it's culture or cinema, how can we prepare those students to make the transition into the Quebec workforce after graduation? So I think what we were trying to express today is our openness to provide solutions, our openness to work with government, and to reaffirm the fact that we're educational institutions. This is a good mission for universities to play in Quebec society.
We're speaking with Graham Carr, President and Vice-Chancellor of Concordia University, about this meeting today with Premier François Legault. I can't help but wonder, Mr. Carr, if the concern from the CAQ government is really, and they've stated this, is really that there's just too much English being spoken in downtown Montreal. We know the door is open a bit potentially to save bishops for there to be an exemption there. But what we're talking about, this historic proposal, doesn't really address that, right? That's still going to be a big concern for the government, that simply there's too much English in downtown Montreal.
Well, I think our approach is to say we recognize that that we are Anglophone institutions, and obviously we have a significant student population here that for whom English is a first language. But at Concordia, 3/4 of our students are already bilingual. So we need to also, I think, deal with the reality of what our institutions are today rather than the perception of what they may have been 15 or 20 years ago. And our goal is really to try to encourage the government to rethink how they can achieve the goals that they identified when they made the announcements on the 13th of October, but achieve those goals through different means, and means which we think are ultimately positive, both for the linguistic landscape in Quebec, but also for the needs of the economy in the future.
I constantly use myself as an example as a Concordia grad who chose to come and study here and immerse myself in the culture and the language, and has gone, I worked for a French newspaper. There are so many people like me out there. So I'm hoping that the government was receptive to this, that they're seeing the reality of university life and what can be built from that. Are you, Mr. Carr, are you left feeling hopeful? Do you feel that something will come of this meeting?
I feel very good about the proposal that we put on the table. I feel very good about the position that the Anglophone universities have taken. As I said earlier, I felt that the government, that the Premier was listening to the arguments that we made. I will wait and see. The ball is in their court. We will wait and see after they've had some time to reflect what they come back with. We hope that we are opening the door to a conversation with them, but we did underline that there's urgency to this. We are already paying a price for the announcements that were made earlier in October, and it is not just the Anglophone universities, it's frankly all universities in Quebec are paying a price for that. So I think we have a mutual interest to try to find a constructive, creative solution as soon as possible.
Is that price a decline in enrollment already? For next year?
Well, we're certainly anticipating there's going to be a decline in enrollment. We saw it in our open house that a large number of people who had registered from the rest of Canada to attend open house did not actually attend in the end. So, and we see what the conversation is on social media with rest of Canada students and international students as well. And there's a lot of confusion out there, and that's not good in a recruitment season. No,
definitely not. Mr. Carr, I'm just going to squeeze. We're out of time, but one last question here. You said the Premier seems to have a sense of the urgency, but is there any kind of timeline in terms of expecting a response?
Well, they said they would get back to us in a very short delay. I think they understand that time is of the essence for us. So I hope to hear. I hope and expect to hear from them very shortly indeed.
Excellent. Fingers crossed. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for your interest. Take care.
Indeed, you too. That is Graham Carr, President and Vice-Chancellor of Concordia University. Big fingers crossed and toes while we're at it.